Picture this, you've retired. You're living the dream, maybe on a sun-drenched patio somewhere in Guadalajara, Mexico. Everything you've planned for is finally happening. But there's always that little question in the back of your mind. If something were to happen to you, would those Social Security survivor benefits you've worked so hard for actually follow your spouse abroad? It's a huge question, and it could change everything. So let's find out.
So that's the big question, right? Will your spouse still get those benefits if you move out of the country? Now, the short answer is usually yes, but oh man, the devil is in the details. The path to getting those benefits can be super straightforward, or it can get pretty complicated fast. Let's break down exactly what you need to know.
And hey, if you're asking this question, you are definitely not alone. Get this, over 711,000 people are already getting their Social Security payments outside the U.S. That number has more than doubled in just the last 20 years. And what's really interesting is that about 1 in 7 of them are receiving the exact same survivor benefits we're talking about today. So yeah, this isn't just some fringe idea, it's a well-trodden path. Okay, but before we dive into all the rules for living abroad, we have got to tackle one really crucial point of confusion: the difference between survivor benefits and spousal benefits. They sound pretty similar, but trust me, they operate under completely different rules. Mixing them up can be a really costly mistake. Let's just break it down nice and simple. On the left, you've got spousal benefits. These are for a living partner, and they top out at 50% of the worker's benefit. But over on the right, you see survivor benefits. These are for a widow or widower after the worker has passed away. And notice the key differences here. They can start earlier, at age 60, and they can be worth up to 100% of what the worker was getting. For the rest of this explainer, we're going to be focusing only on those survivor benefits. So, how do these rules actually work in the real world? Let's start with the easiest scenario. What happens when the surviving spouse who's living abroad is a U.S. citizen? The good news is, this is the most straightforward path by far. For U.S. citizens, the rule is refreshingly simple. Payments will generally keep coming as long as you don't live in a country that's restricted by the U.S. Treasury. We're talking places like North Korea. But for popular retirement spots like Mexico, Portugal, and most of Europe, you're totally in the clear. As long as the Treasury can legally send money there, a U.S. citizen spouse can collect their benefits without a hitch.
Okay, but what if the surviving spouse is not a U.S. citizen? Well, this is where things get a bit more specific, and you really need to pay closer attention to the rules.
For a non-citizen spouse, the big one is called the 5-year residency rule. Basically, to get survivor benefits outside the U.S., they generally have to have lived in the United States for at least 5 years while married to the worker. And that last part is so important. The residency has to actually overlap with the marriage itself. So this obviously leads to a pretty critical question, right? What if a couple spent most of their time abroad and the non-citizen spouse doesn't meet that 5-year requirement? Is all hope lost?
Thankfully, no. There is a powerful exception, and it's called a totalization agreement. You can think of these as special treaties, kind of like a handshake between the U.S. and other countries, designed to coordinate Social Security benefits. For a lot of people, these agreements are a critical workaround to that 5-year residency rule. Right now, the U.S. has these agreements with about 30 other countries, and this list includes a lot of popular retirement destinations, places like Mexico, Canada, and most of Western Europe. So if a non-citizen spouse is a citizen of one of these partner countries, this agreement might let them receive survivor benefits abroad, even if they don't meet that 5-year U.S. residency test. All right, so understanding the rules is one thing, but actually putting them into action is a whole other story. If moving abroad is part of your retirement plan, let's walk through a little pre-departure checklist to make sure everything goes as smoothly as possible. We can break this whole planning process down into 3 key steps. First, you've got to confirm eligibility. Dot all the I's and cross the T's before you even think about leaving. Second, you absolutely have to research your destination to avoid any nasty surprises. And third, you have to plan the logistics of how you're actually going to get your money. Let's look at each one. So first up, confirming eligibility. This means you have to get proactive. You'll want to check your official earnings record with the Social Security Administration. Make sure your marriage meets the length requirements. And this is crucial. If your spouse isn't a citizen, start gathering the documents to prove those years you lived together in the U.S. Paperwork is your best friend here. Step 2, research your destination. Please don't just assume it's okay. The Social Security Administration keeps a public list called the OK to Pay list. Before you book any flights, make sure your dream location is on it. And while most popular spots are totally fine, a quick 5-minute check can save you from a massive headache down the road. And finally, step 3 is planning the logistics. I mean, how are you actually going to access your money? A lot of expats find it easiest to just keep a US bank account for direct deposits and then transfer funds to a local account as needed. And hey, don't forget about Uncle Sam. Even if you live overseas full-time, your Social Security benefits may still be subject to US income tax, so make sure you factor that into your budget. You know, when you boil it all down, it comes back to this one simple idea. You have to treat your Social Security like any other major asset. Think about it. You wouldn't move abroad without a plan for your house or your investments, right? Well, your benefits deserve that exact same level of careful planning before you go.
So, we'll leave you with this one final thought. The question isn't just about whether you can afford to retire abroad. It's about whether your entire financial plan, and especially your Social Security, is truly ready for the world. Is it built to support the life you've always dreamed of, no matter where on the map that might be?